Hey, welcome to the Push-Pull Sales and Marketing Podcast. I'm Marcello.
And I'm Sherry, and each episode will provide you with sales and marketing strategies that you can implement immediately into your own business. All right, so today I am excited to be speaking with Dinesh K. He is a founder, mentor, speaker, entrepreneur. He's been involved with over 13 companies, and he encourages people to ask the right questions, navigate those difficult decisions, and come up with those tough answers so that you can transform your business. You can go to his website, dineshk.co, to view a lot more of his work. He has some great blog posts there and videos of speeches that he's done, and I'm sure we'll get to know him a little bit more today on this episode. Thank you for being here, Dinesh.
Thanks very much for inviting me. So
I know since you're involved with so many different things, it can be hard to figure out, when people say, what do you do? It's hard to wrap that up in a nutshell, but tell us a little bit more about yourself, your background, how you got to this point.
Sure. So I went to school. We'll start there. This might take a little bit.
I love that. This is always so fascinating to me to hear where people started and where they've ended up, because most times it's not a clear path. Most times it's
You're absolutely right.
You do X, Y, Z, and you end up here.
Yeah, and I think I really fit the bill there. So, I did primary sciences. The idea was to go to med school like most good East Indian boys. Got through my bachelor's degree in neuroscience and decided that really wasn't what I wanted to do. And proceeded to, try to figure out what was next, and loved the fundamental sciences, but frankly, not very marketable as far as skills go, unless you want to go into research. So it kind of luckily was at the right place at the right time, early 90s. And, at that time, I make the joke, if you could spell HTML, you could get a job in technology. And my spelling was pretty good. So I got my first job working with a small team, a startup, and was one of the first sales guys, and was able to work with that team and grow that business up, eventually get acquired and go public on the London Stock Exchange. And that kind of hooked me. And since then, I've been building companies for the last 20 plus years, and some of them successfully, a lot more of them unsuccessfully, but frankly learning every single time. Absolutely. And today I work with founders as an angel, and also as a board member and advisor coach. How I do things that's a little different is I try as much as possible to leverage my capital with my network and my experience in sales and marketing.
Right.
And that combination hopefully creates better outcomes for me as an investor and great outcomes for the people, the really phenomenal people I get to work with.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that really helps. I mean, money is helpful, but the information and the experience and the different perspective is what is so valuable. And I think you made the interesting point that, if you want your money to succeed, you got to put in a little bit of extra effort to help them along the way. But that's the hard part. That's the hard part for you, is the time, investing the time and the brain power to back the people that you're investing in, rather than just throwing money at the problems.
You hit it. And I often say I pick people, not investments.
Yeah.
And what I've found is when I've spent time focused on the founder and the values match and working through the business opportunity with a great team, those teams are way more successful than the classic Excel spreadsheet financial model that looks like it's going to be $1 billion company.
Right.
Focusing on the people is the key.
Right. Do you find that sometimes you'll invest in the people and maybe the first company that you initially invested in doesn't work out, but those same people will go on to build something else successful? Or a lot of times, are you able to help them bring their current idea to fruition?
It's a really interesting question, and I think relevant for anyone who's thinking about entrepreneurship, whether it's intrapreneurship in a corporation or entrepreneurship on your own. Mm-hmm. And the reality is ideas are not static, and the thought that you would start with an idea and that you would hold on to just that idea over the life of your company is just not true.
Mm-hmm.
So the key thing that successful entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs are able to do is they're able to pivot around their idea, maintaining the core while being resilient and flexible to the environment that they're in and the information that the market is providing. So the short answer is that inevitably all those ideas succeed. They rarely look like what I initially invested in.
That's really interesting. And I love that you put the emphasis on that point, because I think we struggle with that concept on a micro level as well as on a macro level, whether it's just, well, we blog once a week and that's always what we've done and that's what we should keep doing and we should be consistent. And maybe on that micro level, it means you need to blog every day, or maybe only once a month you do a longer, more in-depth thing. It's okay to try different things, go back to what, if it didn't work, go back to it. And then on the macro level, like you said, if the market isn't responding, well, go back to the drawing board. What else do we need to be doing here? What do we need to change? Maybe this is a really big company shift that's not just shifting the to-do list around. And I think, it has to be interesting for you to get to see a lot of that in a lot of different, are you in a lot of different industries?
I'm a technologist, so I try as much as possible to stay in technology. I do have do some work in media as well, but it's tied to technology still. I think the key thing is a couple of key things. What your points are very, very important in that what worked yesterday is not guaranteed to work tomorrow. Wow. And if you get into that rhythm without being intentional about it, and critical with it, to look at and say, is this the rhythm that is going to help the future of my business? Yeah. Even if it got me here, it may not get me there. And the thought of a business where you're able to apply principles irrespective of market, whether it's technology, media, security, professional services, the principles hold true. And investing the time to ask yourself the question, is this the right thing for me to do for the future, even though it's the right thing for me to do today? And right. Sometimes it's yes and sometimes it's no.
Right. And I think maintaining your expectations too. So many people get frustrated when it changes, when something's overhauled, when organic Facebook reach suddenly dropped, and now what? Now what's the game plan? And a lot of people just throw in the towel or get angry at the system instead of going in with the expectation of, we're playing in the technology space and it changes really, really fast, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. So if you're not ready to get into this industry, or quite frankly any industry at this point, everything is shifting. The market is shifting. What people want out of a company is changing and continues to change. And if you have the expectation that you're going to be able to just set up shop and do, figure out one way to do it for all time, you're just setting yourself up for a lot of headaches.
Yeah, the only thing that's constant is change. That's right. One of those classic right. ones, and change is going to happen whether you are adaptable and flexible to it or not. Yeah. The output of that change is a successful business or a failed business. Right. And focus on the output, which is, I want a successful business, and it's not supposed to be simple, and it's not supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be hard. It's hard. It's hard. If it was easy, frankly, it wouldn't be worth anything. And take your time and do your experimentation and follow your intuition and learn from the market, but expect whatever you're doing now to be different than what you do a year from now.
Sure. And within that, you say, it's hard, it's difficult, but that doesn't necessarily mean, I was looking through your website and you're saying that the overall concept of a successful business should be really, really simple. Yep. You go through, that it should be explained on a whiteboard in 15 minutes or less. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I'd love to. This is a bit of a passion for me. I think with MBAs, and I guess I resemble that. I have an MBA, so I resemble that comment. But most of those guys, myself included, we graduated from that school with thinking, oh, complexity equals sophistication, and it's just simply not true. Simplicity is really the key to success. If you think about your business, whether you're communicating to customers as a marketer, if you're working inside a business and you're communicating to managers or customers or colleagues, whatever it is that you're trying to advance, whatever idea you're trying to advance, your likelihood of being successful is directly proportionate to how easily people will understand it and then be able to relay it. And the more complex it is, the harder it is to understand and then relay. So if you need a 20-point slide deck to share your idea is going to sit in a Dropbox somewhere and no one's going to look at it. And if you have a whiteboard that has 3 core simple ideas that are invigorating and are intuitive, then it's easy for that individual that you're sharing that idea with to communicate it to others and build momentum around it. And if you think about the most successful businesses in the world and most successful people in the world, they're able to simplify their ideas to a point where they can be communicated, and it becomes a bit like wildfire. They spread, and that's your goal as an entrepreneur, a marketer, a salesperson, is to be a purveyor of ideas that spread. And when you do that, what ends up happening is it generates into enterprise value for your business.
Absolutely. And if the idea is a little bit more simple, typically then once it gets to the market, they understand what you want them to do. It's a very clear what need you're fulfilling and how they can get that need fulfilled. Whether it's just being entertained, whether it's a product that they need, whether it's a service. If it's something that they can grasp quickly and take action quickly while they're excited about it, I think a lot of people try to elongate that process instead of capturing the potential customer when they're most excited about the product or the service.
One of the hardest lessons I learned as a marketer was that people rationalize what they've already bought into, as opposed to what they taught me at marketing school, which was provide people with the information to make a decision. And that's reverse. Provide people with the rationalization they need to go with the emotional decision they've already made. And that's something that entrepreneurs, and especially technology entrepreneurs who are very, analytical, are like, it's very much against kind of how they think. And if you start with a really compelling why or need that folks can tie into and emotionally tie into, and then you provide the empirical data to support why that need is actually going to generate into long-term benefits, you're going to have a much higher conversion rate, whether it's a sales call in your corporation, a marketing piece, a product marketing piece, or your professional services business that you're speaking at an event or you're talking to a customer about a new AdWords campaign. Start with getting them emotionally bought in, and then help them understand and rationalize it with the numbers. Don't go the other way around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and it makes sense, but it's, like you said, it's not something that is always offered as best practice. A lot of times it is flipped. When you've just invested in a company and you're getting to know this new business and the people behind it, what are some common questions that you're hearing from them?
So that's hard. I wish there were a set of common questions. I think every entrepreneur is kind of at different phases. More often than not, they're asking, if it's this idea that money is going to solve all my problems, right. and oh well, if you give me $100,000, or if you're part of my round for $1 million. Yeah, the money is important, the plan is important, but the fact is that I don't go in thinking, okay, I'm going to write one check, and that's all this business is ever going to need. I've lost too much money thinking that way.
Yeah.
And so instead, what I think about is, okay, this is the first installment of a learning exercise. And as this entrepreneur has new capacity and capabilities in front of them, they're going to discover and ask different questions, and that's going to move the business to a different level. And at that level, there's going to be a whole bunch of new funding requirements and market requirements and people requirements. And my goal is not to create a business with $100,000 check, but to use that money with whoever else is involved to get to that new set of questions. And that requires it requires a very kind of heart-to-heart conversation with the entrepreneur to speak to the fact that it's about the journey, not the destination. And how are you going to work through the journey? So money is the most common. If I have money, everything will be great, which is simply not true.
Right.
And then the second one is around do you this is a bit harder. Is my baby beautiful?
Yeah.
And is my idea great? Seeking external validation for whatever idea they're advancing, and simply it's just there are tons of great ideas out there. Ideas are really not what's in scarce supply. Execution is. And what I think about your idea or anybody else thinks about your idea is really frankly irrelevant. It's what you think about your idea that's important, because what you think about your idea is what's going to motivate you to push through the valleys when things are hard and motivation is low. And don't look for external validation, whether you're inside a business or starting your own. Is if your idea is truly compelling, believe in it and execute on it. And by doing so, you'll attract the people who share your view.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And expanding on that a little bit, are there certain characteristics that you feel like you see in people who you believe are going to be successful entrepreneurs when you're finding them at these pretty early stages? And you had mentioned earlier about kind of betting on the jockey versus the horse kind of thing. You're
Got it. Yeah, that's exactly right.
What are some of those common characteristics that you are able to pick out in people? Because if it's not the idea necessarily, it's the person. And is it that they have a good plan that they're going to execute this well? Is it personality traits? Is it a combo?
It starts with values. One of the things that I've figured out over the years is that there's very few really bad people in the world. There are, of course, some, but the majority of people are trying to do the right thing and kind of make their lives and all of our lives better in some small way. And so it's more about figuring out, are your values aligned with my values? That's a big one for me. And then the second is that how do you deal with adversity? I expect that there's going to be a lot of adversity in the process, and we'll need to be able to figure out how you deal with it, and how you deal with it is going to align with how I deal with it. And that can only time. You need time. And what I end up spending a lot of time doing is when I work with entrepreneurs is I'll do a 90-day period where I actually, they pay me to come and work with them in their business. And the goal there is to both of us learn how the other one works and how we're going to deal with some of the fundamental challenges of building a business. And if things work out really, really well, which a small percentage of the time they do, then, I will capitalize 100% of my time plus add some capital to it. If they don't work out well, which not well, I think that's maybe not the right way to say it, is if it doesn't result in an investment, a lot of the times it results in a friendship, but a realization that, we can't be in business together because our values are different, our objectives are different, and that's totally okay. I still, we still have a friendship, and if we're able to join our networks, and if there's a way that I can help, I always help. But the fact is that we know now, and that that change, which I started in the last few years, actually really upped the success rate of the investments I make.
I'm sure.
The downside is it results in a very much smaller number of investments that I can be part of, and businesses that I can be part of, because it requires a lot more time.
I'm sure, and I'm sure that has to be one of the hardest parts of it, is if you genuinely enjoy the people where you're maintaining a friendship and moving forward, but being able to separate that from a smart business decision or a smart investment, and being able to say, it's, we're just not the right fit. This idea might do well, it might do better with someone else, but I just can't be the person to take you there.
That's exactly right. And that requires a level of authenticity for yourself, in recognizing where you really can't bring what this business needs. Right. And frankly, it's more often than not me, not the person on the other side. I'm the wrong fit. My money is green just like everybody else's, but the fact is that if you're not going to, at the stage you're at, if you're not going to be able to get, a couple of doors opened in the industry you want, you can't, you need somebody who's more technical. Maybe you need a set of things that I don't have, but I might be able to connect you to. Those are all key, right? And so I try as much as possible to have that very frank conversation, and
sure people appreciate that too.
I would hope so. I mean, I've had positive and negative responses, to be frank. But in the end, it's I got to we got to do what we believe is best. And I missed out on some good deals that turned into a lot of money because I chose to take this path. But frankly, I'm committed to the path, and I recognize that you're going to win some and you're going to lose some.
Can you give us a little bit more information about that path, your set of values? Is there a way that you're hoping to better the world, that you are able to do that through your investments, or is it really on a case-by-case basis?
There's some principles I have. So one is I like to work with people who have an abundance philosophy as opposed to a scarcity philosophy. There's it doesn't matter which one you choose to believe in. I think both, you're not going to be able to prove one right or wrong. Right. It's just you. I frankly have more fun when I'm thinking the world's a good place than I am when I'm thinking everybody's out to get me. Right. And so that's why I like working with people like that, because they build on my energy. So that's one. The second is I call it the say-do gap. I need to work with people whose word is their bond, and what they say is what they do. Even if they need to change what they say because the market has, forced a new piece of data, the great entrepreneurs that I work with have the courage to have the conversation as soon as they know they're not going to follow through. Yeah. And the say-do gap is really important. I think it's the foundation of trust. Yeah. So that's number two. And then, the third is that they should be people who believe long-term that they're doing something that's meaningful. It can't be about the money. I mean, we're all in it to make money. The joke I make, it's how we keep score. Yeah. But it can't be for the money. It's got to be for something else. Yeah. I think money can be very empty. It's great, and everybody loves having it and the stuff that you can do with it. Sure. But it can't be the reason for why you create a business, because you won't be able to attract the right customers and employees and investors if that's all you think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And your second point there with the say-do gap is something it's been a blog post in my head for a while that I just haven't gotten out yet, or a podcast episode, but I completely agree that as soon as you know that something needs to change, or whatever it is, I mean, just keeping your client up to date with where you're at with a project, whether that means you're behind or you're ahead, or what you're waiting for, if you need, just that communication thing solves so many problems before they happen. And too many times, especially in the freelance realm, I feel like freelancers just take the project, go into their hole, and then then resurface, once it's done, for better or worse. And in the meantime, you don't know if the person who hired you is sitting there panicking because they haven't gotten an update and thinking maybe they haven't even gotten started, or maybe they're not on the right track. I feel like checking in and just giving the simple, short email updates is often a great way to keep customers happy. And it's such a simple thing that I feel like gets missed a lot of the time.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And the fact is that if you don't do it, you're still going to have to face the consequences.
Yeah. And a lot of
Things
times
will go wrong, and it'll be a lot worse, right?
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's exactly right.
What is a recommendation or a couple recommendations that you have for our listeners, whether it's a book, an app, a course, something that you feel like could really help them in their journey?
So I'm an inside out kind of guy, probably evident. So you start with the inside and you create the world that you want by being the kind of person you want to be. And so there's some basic fundamentals to that, which are everything from Stephen Covey, 7 Effective Habits, to Think and Grow Rich. That's a classic. Mm-hmm. Some of the ones that I really like that are more recent is Essentialism. That's a book that I've read recently that I really liked. Another one that I do is I actually am a big fan of TED, and dedicating time every day to listen to TED Talks. I'm an exercise guy. I like to be, I guess, fit, I guess would be the right word, and so I get up in the morning and I listen to an hour of TED every day. If you as an entrepreneur or an intrapreneur or any person, I think, were to just take a TED or a podcast and randomize it and pick something that you would not necessarily listen to ordinarily, or watch ordinarily, and expand your consciousness that way. Mm-hmm. If you do that, what ends up happening is, as an entrepreneur, you generate ideas that can be world changing. And
that's exactly what I was going to say. A lot of times as a writer, if I feel like I am out of ideas, I can't think of anything else, I don't feel like I don't have anything else left to say, and I realize that I haven't been living necessarily. I haven't been getting enough outside experiences. I haven't been going outside my bubble. I haven't been consuming enough that doesn't maybe match my own ideas. And as soon as I kind of step outside of that circle of that comfort zone, whether it's physically going out into the community and doing something new, or it's listening, like you said, a random TED Talk, even if it's not related to my industry, a lot of times it does spark something like, oh, maybe that applies over here too. That's an interesting way of looking at things.
You got it. Yeah, it's all about the biggest part, I think, of any entrepreneurship journey is to force yourself to be growing. And one of the things I always thought my founders know is your business grows at the rate you grow. So the faster you're growing, the faster your business will grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other ones? I cut you off there a little bit in the middle.
No,
Those
I mean
there's
lots of there's tons, and there's tons of operational ones as well. Execution is a really great one if that's more the practical kind of, how do I execute? That's a great book. There's another one which is Lean Startup. I think that's a must read for anybody who wants to be in entrepreneurship. Just read. Try to commit to reading a book a month if you can, and you'll see massive returns.
Yeah. What's another perspective, or what's another point that you're really passionate about, that you're really trying to get across to people in this space? You talked about, the simplifying things, but...
Yeah, simplify and just execute. I think we spend way too much time trying to get the idea right instead of just getting the idea done. Mm-hmm. And I focus on getting the idea done. If it's wrong, it doesn't matter. like people think, oh, I got to get it right or it's not. Yes, there's going to be a cost of capital. Yes, there's going to be a cost of time. But what I've learned over, the last 20 years is there's always a cost of capital or time, and you can't predict. It doesn't mean you don't think things through. It's not ready, fire, aim.
Right.
It just means when you get to a point where you're like, I know broadly what I want to do, start executing, and through execution refine your plan, as opposed to planning and then executing and then having invested all your time in planning, you have no wiggle room if there's if the execution fails in some way, and it's going to fail. Just accept it's going to fail. Accept it's going to fail in some capacity, and you're going to have to modify. The faster you get executing, the faster you get that data, the faster you can modify your plan, the faster you can get back to executing. Absolutely. And so that's one thing I try to tell everyone is the plan, once you get to the point where you're 60, 70%, just go.
Yeah. Because like you said, the more time that you're putting into that planning phase, it's going to be that much harder to pivot later because you feel like you put in all that time. Like, this should work. Why isn't this working? I thought about everything. And yeah, what did you say it was?
It's called sunk cost bias.
Yeah.
I've invested so much time so far. By putting more time into the same plan, I'm going to somehow, good money after bad, right? Yeah. And we're all human, so we all go through it. So managing that investment of time and capital, and understanding the money you've put in or the time you've put in, it's gone. So you need to assume it's gone, stop thinking about it, and start from zero. That's another really important lesson. Is just because you did it before and you invested a bunch of time getting here doesn't mean it's worth doing. And that's really hard for entrepreneurs, especially if you can imagine your product all of a sudden is not relevant and you've spent 5 years working on it.
I can't imagine.
Right? Okay. Do I keep working on it? Well, no, your product's not relevant. Putting another dollar after those 5 years worth is a waste of that dollar. Come up with a new idea, however emotionally difficult it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Count your losses before they get even worse.
Yeah.
And do you find yourself in that spot some of the time that you're the one that has to?
Yep, I'm an investor, so 60 to 70% of the things I do don't work out, and my wife laughs. She goes, "You've lost more money than most people make," and and frankly, that's okay. That's part of the process, and the key thing for me is to be able to understand what happened, and go forward. And whatever industry it's in it's about, okay, so what's next? Okay, what's next? And more often than not, you need to be able to understand when it's time to go. And an external view, somebody who's less close to it than you are, is a great way to try to catch yourself. And so go out and ask people. Yeah. Not whether your idea is good or not, because I told you the validation piece is not there. But if you were the CEO of this company, what would you do?
Yeah, it's an interesting, different way of phrasing it, for sure. And that's a huge number, and I think it's a very real and a very powerful number for people to understand, regardless of where they're at in their career, is that 60 to 70% of your investments don't work out. And no one would look at you and say you're unsuccessful, even though well over half of them are not working out. It's just part of that process.
And what people don't realize is the ones that do can make up for it if you've picked the right, if you pick the right thing. So if 60% of your investments are not working out or your activities are not working out, and you're expecting a 20% return on the things that you're doing, you're going to fail. You're going to just fail and you'll be out of money. But if you try to look for things that have 1,000% return and 60 to 70% don't work out, one of those working out, right, results in all of your losses coming back and being covered. And so you have to figure out how you're going to manage that. And
I feel like that applies to anything. It applies to content creation, trying to remind ourselves that, this blog post, I could write 100 blog posts and maybe one of them will blow up and actually offer some really interesting opportunities. And it's not about, it's just, you just got to keep plugging on. You got to, each one, you're hoping, you're putting the effort in, and you're putting the time in, and you're trying, in your own mind, any one of these could work out, and whatever else is happening, in the universe, or whoever happens to see that post, eventually something will work. And like you said, that could mean that overall you're in the positive versus the negative.
Yeah, and it's like there's no point in dreaming small, right? Mm-hmm. If you dream small, whether it's in your writing or you're in your in your business or your sales number, whatever, picking a small number doesn't change the fact that you're going to lose. When I was a sales guy, the other joke I would make is I lost 5 times as many deals as I won. Right. And so if I pick a small number in terms of, the deals that I want to go after, and I know that I'm going to lose 5 times as many, all I do is limit my upside. Mm-hmm. I don't change my downside at all. I just limit my upside. Mm-hmm. So I might as well go for the 7-figure deal and try to create a scenario where I have, 6 great 7-figure deals in my pipeline, knowing I'm going to lose 5 of them, but I'll make 1, then try to find 7 20K deals, knowing that I'm going to lose 5 of them and make 1 because my upside's 20K instead of 7K. The numbers don't change. Like it's one of those weird things about the world. It's not the size of the opportunity is not tied to your ability or its chance of being either a success or a failure.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I think the most interesting thing there that sparks something is that you said that it's consistent across a lot of different mediums. Whether, we had to have the conversation with our 6-year-old son in soccer, because he said he never wanted to try to score a goal because he was worried he was going to miss. And I was like, oh, right. So we need to walk through this conversation of you will miss most of the shots you take. But the only way you're ever going to score one is to take all of those shots. And it's something that whether it's,
forget it when we grow up.
Soccer, yeah. And then we start to think like, well, I earned this degree and I have all this experience and it should just work every time because I put in the work and I'm talented. And it's just not, all of those things help. Absolutely. And you have to do all of those things to even have that.
I mean, it helps if you're standing in front of the goal when you take the shot, right? And
right. So if you've shown up to most of your practices.
Yeah. I mean, frankly, if you're shooting from, the parking lot, you're in big trouble, right?
That's true.
But if you're in front of the goal and you're taking a shot, well, take the shot, right? And all that other stuff gets you on the field and gets you into position. It doesn't get you the goal. Mm-hmm. And so you have to take the shot. And that fear of taking those shots, I think, is whether it's fear of failure or fear of success. I've seen both, frankly. Mm-hmm. People are actually afraid of being successful, which is a very counterintuitive fear in high success individuals. But I've seen a lot of that.
It's hard to self-identify that. It's hard to see that within yourself. I think other people might be able to see that, and I think that is so wonderful that you are so upfront with the people you're investing in and so dedicated to them as a person as well, that you can bring that honesty and that outsider perspective to the table.
Well, it's selfish. I want my money to grow. I do. I do want to have the best for the individual, but the best for the individual almost always translates into the best for the business.
Yeah. So how do you, if you do have that ingrained fear of success, how do you take steps to get over that?
Yeah, it's really, really hard. I don't know. I have a fear of failure bias. So my solution for fear of failure is to fail more. Mm-hmm. So each individual failure becomes less painful.
Right.
I don't know.
Therapy.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know if that would. I mean, it maybe work for success as well. Mm-hmm. But I think the key thing is awareness is the first step, and then your dialogue. So when you see yourself in a place where you're going, am I sabotaging my success here? Yeah. Is just pull yourself up short, and find somebody to talk it through with. I'm not a therapist, but my view would be that there's anybody who has reached anywhere in life has people around them who are rooting for them and are honest, and caring about being truthful and supportive. So when you feel that happening, that maybe you are sabotaging yourself, or you're not getting where you need to go, have that frank conversation with somebody you respect and who cares for you. And frankly, I think they're in the conversation, 90% of the ground is covered. Because once you know, you're gonna do something about it, because you didn't get to where you are by sitting on the sidelines. And I think that just awareness has so much power.
Yeah, and I feel like I see a shift in business in general, in that. And I'm curious if you see the same thing with investors and business owners and employees, that there's starting to be more of a focus on that. There's more of a focus on, what are your hang-ups? What's going on with you psychologically that might be holding you back? Or what are the things that are going on that are going to make you great in this position and not so great there? Like, I feel like we're considering personality and background and seeing people as a whole person in a way that was just thought of as silly even a couple decades ago.
But there's a very strong economic reason to do so. We've transferred from the Industrial Revolution, which was all about manufacturing, where the individual was a widget completing a task, to a knowledge economy where the individual is the asset. And if you're knowledge workers, the individual is the asset. If the individual is in any way unable to be working at top productivity, the business fails. And that's, again, it's I wouldn't say selfish. I would say it's self-interested on the part of management and of investors, in that the more high performance your individuals are, the greater output they are creating, the more value your business will have in a knowledge economy. And that output is directly tied to their mental state and their ability to execute on the tasks in front of them. If you have a repetitive task that's going to be the same whether you are happy or sad, you have to do the same 6 motions. Frankly, the you in it is irrelevant. Just get the task done, which is really how most of the 19th and early 20th century most of the 20th century was structured that way. Now we're in the 21st century, and frankly, things are different. It's knowledge that is creating value, not manufacturing.
Yeah. Do you find yourself in the position where you're having to spell that out for business owners?
I think so. I think it's most often found in folks that are kind of very micromanaging. It's because they believe that the task is what's important, not the output. And there's balance. Accountability is always required. But when you sit down, and these are some of the questions I ask when I work with a founder, is I want to understand, even if they don't have a rational explanation for why they think this way, they do, because that results in a values match, because then we can have a conversation about why this is good for the business and how we communicate this to other shareholders and other management team members, etc.
Absolutely.
But it starts with that value set, and then I think there's great reasons to look after your individuals in your business, because ultimately turnover and training is incredibly expensive. Payroll is, in most companies, the single largest expense item on the income statement. And frankly, if that's your biggest expense, you want to manage that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dinesh. Well, I think we covered a lot. I think it was wonderful. I love speaking with you and getting to hear your perspective on things. How can people find you or reach out to you?
The easiest way is Dinesh K at Work on Twitter. I'm also on clarity.fm / Dinesh K at Work.
Okay.
that you can get a hold of me there. That's a great tool and platform for connecting with thought leaders and folks that have maybe a set of experiences that you'd like to leverage. I'm personally in the process of trying to raise $5,000 for charity on that. So if you're interested in having a reach out and conversation about your business, you can get a hold of me there, and the money goes to charity. You get hopefully some good information, and everybody wins.
Great, thank you. And we went through some of your recommendations, and your website again is dineshk.co. I'll make sure that they have all the links to everything in the show notes at pushpullsales.com. And any final thoughts to leave us with? I think we covered a lot.
Yeah, we covered a lot of ground. As we're going into the holiday season here, this is a great reflective time to think about how you're going to create value in the next year, and take some time. One of these days that we have off, try to find a quiet place and think about your 2017 and how you're going to advance your ideas. And you don't need a lot of ways. Again, pick a small number and then start focusing on getting to the doing as quickly as you can.
Yeah, I love that point. All right, Dinesh. Well, I will make sure that we're in touch with you. We wish you the best, and thank you for coming on today again. And
my pleasure. Thanks so much.
Holidays.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So that wraps things up for the week. Thanks again to Dinesh for coming on the show. Thanks to bensound.com for our intro and outro music. And thanks to you guys for listening. You can tune in next time where we'll tackle another topic. Make sure that you subscribe on iTunes so that you get episode updates when we release a new show. You can check out our list of resources and recommendations at pushpullsales.com/resources. You can view the show notes there on the site as well. You can follow us on Instagram or tweet us, which are both at pushpullsales, and you can email us pushpullsales@gmail.com if you have any feedback, if you're interested in being a guest on the show, or anything of the sort. And we'll talk to you later.